Hey everybody, Eric Mashinsky here, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, April 17th, Tuesday night. I wanted to have a quick recording here and have a little rambling about Bitcoin versus gold. What I don't think that most of the people in the gold community in particular are getting, especially because most of us that have been in the junior mining sector and the mining stocks, it's been such a long beat down that I think you lose focus. You lose imagination as well. And what's really helped me a lot in the past 6 months is taking not only a step back as much as I can from being involved, very heavily in the gold and silver, precious metals and mining sector, but taking a deep dive into cryptocurrency and blockchain and Bitcoin. And, if some of you don't like me talking about this, which I've gotten some feedback on that, I actually don't care because it's too important. It's too important. And I think that those of you that brush it off, you're either ignorant or you're fools because you don't get it. You don't get it. And the reason you don't get it, and the reason it's important to get it, is because this is all about the demise of fiat currencies and government. It really is. It's this is really an evolution or a revolution or whatever you want to call it, but it's a trend that's going to do nothing but accelerate in terms of adoption, use cases, value propositions, just like the internet did. And those of us that are, say, over 40, we were able to see what happened with the internet. And that correlates both with, what happened in the stock market and investments in the late 90s and 2000, how that acted and reacted compared to the underlying steady adoption of the internet around the world. I mean, just think about 20 years ago, really 10, 15 years ago. I think the first time that I actually got an email address was in like 2001, 2000, maybe. I didn't use it much then. I mean, that's like, we're talking about a little over 15 years ago. And when I go back to when I was in my mid-20s, back in the late 90s, it's amazing what has happened. Our lives are completely different. From the mobile perspective, the internet perspective of information that we have access to, services, the consumer, businesses being able to grow, advertising, targeted advertising. I mean, everything has changed. The whole world is different, much different. And when you start to understand the blockchain and cryptocurrencies, it's going to be bigger than the internet in terms of the disruption on industries, the way we live our life, the way business is conducted. And it's really, I think, going to benefit, it mostly will benefit the individuals, the consumers, if you will. That's where a lot of the benefits are going to come out of this huge, monstrous evolution in technology. And a lot of it has to do with money. And the reason I'm a gold investor and very big proponent of owning gold and silver is for a store of value against the constant deterioration of fiat currency. We've had no real choice but to depend on governments to spend and to earn, and how we could end up spending what, where. It's amazing what Bitcoin has done and will continue to do. And I think that right now people aren't believing it, but I think that the combination of Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies as a whole, and gold and silver, which are tried and true forms of money that we know of for millennia, are going to be the pins that destroy fiat currency, that revalue fiat to where they should be valued, which is not where they're valued today. I think there's a bubble in fiat currencies across the globe. And we all know about the debts of the nations and the amount of money printing that the central banks do, and especially have done in the past decade after the crisis in 08, 09. But this stuff, we know it's going to have to come home to roost, but nobody really figures it's going to happen anytime soon because the stock market keeps going up and things, continue to be seemingly okay. But I don't know, the dollar is not looking good. It's going to benefit those of us in precious metals. But more and more people are going to store their fiat in digital currencies. And it's not just going to be Bitcoin, because there's a lot of use cases and utility with some of these tokens and coins that I can foresee using and would rather have my money in than in fiat. If I have fiat that is losing value constantly, I always just look to you have to have a little longer perspective though, if you want to really exploit these things, and quit thinking about next week, next month, even next year in your investments. Everybody's worried about what's going on today in a particular stock or a market, and you're just never going to get ahead. Let's just face it. You're destined for mediocrity at best. To make real money, you have to be able to sit in something for a while and really have it pay you off. Even look at those that were early adopters of Bitcoin. If you hear the stories, and there are a lot of them, people that are now multi-millionaires, even billionaires have been minted from getting in early on Bitcoin. But they were all getting involved in maybe 2010, 2011, some of them as late as 2013, but you're still talking 5, 7, 8 years before they have had these type of results. And, just in the last 12 months, things have really been expedited. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because we've had this pullback in Bitcoin, and I think it's a good time to buy some for those investors that want to protect and have exposure to alternative asset classes outside of the US dollar or the stock market or bond market. It's very concerning on a lot of metrics where the stock market is today in the US after a 10-year move up without a real severe bear market or recession. We know that one is going to come. It's just a question of when. At a minimum, the returns on an annualized basis, looking out 5 years or 10 years, are going to be very, very low. They're going to be much lower than they were the last 10 years. So looking at alternatives makes sense. What I'm learning as I dig further into Bitcoin, though, a very large amount of the reasons to own Bitcoin are similar to why I own a lot of gold. I have a lot of my net worth in precious metals related companies, exploration companies, producers, development companies. And volatility is extreme in Bitcoin, but that can end up really working in your favor as well. If you were a part of the sheep herd that plowed in at 19,000 because it was on CNBC every day and your mailman told you to buy it, then you're down quite a bit. That's a shellacking since December, 4 months, 70%, boom. But I think this has created a really good opportunity for those that may have not gotten involved yet or may have missed the boat. And it's another asset class. What's going to happen is this. I'm convinced of it. In 5 to 10 years, nobody's going to be talking about saving money in fiat currencies anymore. And gold and silver will be huge beneficiaries of this because it will be viewed as real sound money. Let's just look at gold, for example. Gold as sound money and a store of value in the real world versus Bitcoin in the digital land. And having a combination of those two is a winning combination to me. And I think that people are underestimating the amount of transformation that is going to come because of this Bitcoin blockchain revolution that's here. The cat's out of the bag. I mean, the way that I look at the whole big burst that happened into December when things just got out of control and went higher, I'm grateful for it. Even though I did buy some cryptos higher than here, much higher than here at that time, I was very steady at just accumulating. And so some of that I bought, higher, over 10,000 on Bitcoin, and, maybe some Litecoin up at like 250 or something. So it's cut in half. Not the majority of my position, but some of it. So, but it's all good, because not only are they going to go back up to those prices, but they're going to go much, much higher. And this got my attention. And then the problem, I think, with a lot of times we get our attention jarred in the markets, you might get your attention and then it cools off and you give up and you go on to the next thing. I'm sticking with this one, man, because this is an area that is going to just transform everything. Everything that's got fat on it, all the fees that exist, all the middlemen. Tim Draper is a very smart guy. He's one of the richest men in the world, multi-billionaire, venture capitalist. I would encourage you guys to Google or YouTube some of his talks. And what he's saying is that this crypto trend, the blockchain, is going to make governments not only honest, but they're going to have to start competing for us. You have countries like China that put the lockdown on a lot of this stuff when they had some of the best talent in the world, entrepreneurial wise, that were creating technologies on the blockchain and cryptocurrency, and they shut them down. So what do those kids do? They leave. They just leave. They don't stop and stay and move back to the farm and live in poverty. They're gone. They went to Japan, Singapore, the US. Everybody that talks about regulation destroying this market is wrong. It's a good thing. It's going to slow it down a little bit for a period of time, but once the rules are more clearly in play, that's when it's really going to take off, and the adoption is going to be insane. And part of the reason I think that we're only in the early innings of this stuff is because it's a pain in the butt to buy a lot of these coins. It's easy to open a Coinbase account where you can end up buying Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, and Bitcoin Cash. But those are your limits. At least you can do that. You can do it easy because you can link your bank account just like you're funding your E-Trade or Charles Schwab or online TD account. And you can play that way. But if you want to buy an alternative coin, and now there's over 1,500 of them, and some of these are very exciting, very exciting. I mean, they're world-changing ideas. We'll see which ones work out and which ones don't, but I plan on having at least a couple of them that do. But one of the big impediments is that you have storage issues, security issues with the storage issues, and then even with buying the altcoins, you have to move cryptocurrency into these exchanges to buy the altcoins with Bitcoin. You can't buy it with fiat in most cases. So you can't just go to, right now, Binance and link your bank account and buy, for example, Populous, or one of the bigger coins like Stellar Lumens or EOS. You have to buy it with Bitcoin. So you need to send that Bitcoin from, say, your Coinbase account, which isn't really that hard. I mean, the thing that's miraculous about all this is it takes seconds to minutes to transfer any amount of money, and it's pennies to do it. So why would we go back to the banking system of old, the SWIFT code system, where I can't even send money on a Saturday? With Bitcoin, I can send $80 million on a Sunday, and it'll get there in about 10 minutes, and it'll cost me, $50, $100 to send that type of money. I mean, it's crazy. This is what is coming, and it's very, very important. But just in terms of common sense and how we're going to do commerce, and there's going to be a lot of applications with the metals, I think, on the blockchain that are going to be very interesting in terms of using them as a utility to transfer funds, but be backed physically. But things like with Binance, with buying some of the altcoins, it's such a pain. People just give up. I don't understand how to do that. It's the reason why I never bought Bitcoin initially. I heard about it in like 2012. 2011 maybe, I started to hear about it. I looked at it. I'm like, I don't know how to buy it. And I blew it off. And I heard, and then a friend comes to me. I said, I don't know how to buy it, but I bought some domains with Bitcoin in it because then maybe they'll go up. And I did do that like in 2013. So some of them are pretty good. They might be worth something. But I didn't know how to buy Bitcoin. So people say, I don't know how to do it. And it's just like, think about when you went through the, the email, when you first had an email. I don't know how to do it. How do I do it? Once you're doing it, it's easy. How do I use the internet? What do you do? What's a search engine? I mean, remember this stuff? This is how new all of this was to us, and it was only 15 years ago. It wasn't long ago. But those of us over 40 years old who actually saw the opportunities and how things played out with the internet, and now we've got Internet 2.0 here, and you're blowing it off? Are you crazy? Use your brain. Have some fortitude. Take some initiative and learn about what this is. Think about this. This is what I always thought about with the internet. When I became involved in the internet business, and I consider myself a late bloomer coming in around 2010, 2011, I started to get serious and say, I need to learn about email marketing, internet marketing, Google AdWords, banner ads, all this stuff. I need to learn about it. It's important. If you were a carpet installer or salesperson or a plumber or a masseuse, or you sold software or you sold widgets or whatever you did as a business, in 2000, 2001, 2004, 2005, imagine if you just knew how to use Google AdWords. Some of you may not even know about that now, but what it is that anytime you Google anything that you want, people are going to pop up in your community or globally that are going to offer you what you want because you're a hot lead. You're typing in a keyword and then you pay for the clicks. I do this all the time now, but imagine if you were somebody in Chicago and you're the BMW dealer who ended up being the first one on the internet. I mean, do you know how much business you would have gotten over your competitors over those next 3, 4, 5 years? It's crazy. You could have crushed it. And this is the type of thing that's going to happen again. You mix in AI on the blockchain, you mix in some of this stuff, it's going to be crazy. And the early adopters, the people that understand it, even marginally, and then know that there's value there and hire somebody else to get it into your mix, it's going to be the difference between life and death for a lot of different companies. And so, my attitude today is that this is a really good opportunity for gold and silver investors to diversify even further outside of fiat. I mean, you shouldn't have all your money in gold and silver. Maybe you can still have some money in the stock market. Do you want to own real estate in Vancouver? Do you want to own, real estate across the board when the stock market and the general pricing of everything is doubled or tripled in certain communities in the past decade? If you're looking to loosen those things up, or you just want to have your money in something that is not correlated with any of the rest of this stuff, cryptocurrencies are a growing yet small area that will become an official asset class for everyone in the coming 5 to 10 years. Everyone will own them, just like you own stocks. So you can pay attention to it now and figure it out and at least do something. Buy some Bitcoin, buy some Litecoin, buy some Ethereum, just buy some Bitcoin. You can do it easily, but just put some on and don't worry about what happens this week or next month. Look at it as a 2, 3, 5-year investment, and you're just not going to touch it. Tim Draper, again, I like that guy. He's a very, very smart venture capitalist. He's a billionaire. He's one of the guys on Silicon Valley that's done it all. He invested in Skype and Tesla and all kinds of different stuff when they were startups. Made hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars on those investments for himself and his limited partners. And he's a rich guy, and he gets it. And he's become a bit of a thought leader in the Bitcoin community. So in 2014, Bitcoin was like under 400, and And he went on record saying that within 3 years, it was at the end of 2014, within 3 years, it would go to 10,000. So he was basically predicting at that point, it was a 25x move up within 3 years. It ended up going down, I think, to 200 right after that. And then by November, what was it, November 2017, it bested 10,000 and went to 20. And around that time, he said, look, I'm going to come out with another prediction on Bitcoin in April of 2018. They were having an event, a party. So this was 3 days ago. He came out and said that by 2022, so December 2022, which we're looking at, it's 4.5 years. Is that right? Yeah. So 4.5 years. So by 2022, Bitcoin will be $250,000. Is he right? He was right before. There's a lot of smart people that are very, very in tune with this area that are saying that Bitcoin's not only going higher, it's going into the 6 figures. So we're at what, 8,000 right now? 8,000 on Bitcoin. Let's say it was going to 40,000, which is up 5x, which is nowhere near any of these predictions that I'm thinking about or referring to. And it took 5 years to get there. That's a huge winner. I'm putting as much money as I can in that all day. My personal opinion is I think it's going to 50 to 100,000. I think it's going to 50 to 100,000 in the next few years. And if you keep ignoring this space, you're going to kick yourself in the future. Bitcoin, people saying it doesn't have any value. You look at, listen, even gold, let's not kid ourselves. It's considered money because people consider it money, and they have considered it money. When enough people consider something money, it's money. And the other thing is that when you look at the cost to produce, people say, well, listen, a commodity, it costs you to produce, to pull it out of the ground. And that's true. And gold, what is the cost of production these days? I mean, it's over $1,000 an ounce. It's hard for companies to be profitable, even at 1,300 in some cases. Maybe it's 1,000, 1,100, worldwide. Bitcoin today is at least $3,000 a Bitcoin to produce. The price has been going up considerably because of the competition, cost of power, things of that nature. It's expensive. It costs, people have to put real investments into mining these Bitcoins. And I think it's about 2.5 years away, but then they have the amount of Bitcoins that are actually released are cut in half. So you have a situation with not only is it going to continue to cut the supply, but then the supply eventually stops. So this groundswell it's a perfect storm for a very good investment long term. The froth has come off of the market. I think it's safe to start going back in and making some bets in this area. I will buy into it being a form of digital gold, if you will, as an alternative to fiat currency. I'm not selling my gold and mining stocks to buy Bitcoin, but I'm chomping at the bit to have some of my mining stocks start to pop. And I'm more excited about taking some profits there. I mean, that's where I'm most heavily weighted, but I'm most excited about taking profits there to buy more cryptocurrencies and maybe some blockchain stocks and companies than I am to sell my crypto and buy more gold and silver. There's bigger upside in the other stuff. I think, gold I look at as the safest investment in the world. But, as far as some real juice where you can end up making 10, 20, 50 times your money, it's going to happen with some of our mining stocks. When gold's at 2,000 and silver is up closer to 100, a lot of these things are going to fly. It's going to be big. But, physical gold itself versus physical silver, and you put that up against Bitcoin, or if you pick, God forbid, you pick a few of the altcoins that are going to end up becoming the next Bitcoin. Bitcoins that will be specific to certain industries, but will completely disrupt them, that are huge. I mean, this digital and cryptocurrencies will essentially replace slowly but surely or quickly replace fiat. That's what's going to happen. So gold will have a big place there. I think that all this together, though, this groundswell of crypto and digital currencies and people understanding that fiat is, it's just not valuable. It's not valuable when they continue to print it and spend it like it's monopoly money. At a minimum, we know that fiat currency deteriorates in value over periods of time. The purchasing power, when I was a kid buying a candy bar in the 1980s, 25 cents. Today it's 10 times that. For gold, gold's up 3,300% since 1971. When you account for inflation, it's still up over 4% a year. So there's a store of value and I believe a growth element when you own gold versus currency. People put it against the stock market, which is fine, but I don't believe that that's its main purpose. Its main purpose is to have a store of not only value, but your energy, your time, your labor. It's all condensed into gold as that metric. And Bitcoin's going to be a form of that as well, digitally. And I think all of this together, say there's more of an adoption of anti-fiat that occurs in the world because people are less and less going to want to own fiat. They're going to look at crypto. They're going to look at certain utility tokens and coins that have value to put money in. And they are going to look at gold and silver as the real stores of value in the physical world. All these things together, so you get a multi-trillion-dollar market in crypto and you get a bump in gold to 10 to 20 trillion. You start to make a big, big dent in fiat in general. And I think that it's going to end up sooner than we think having an effect on literal fiat currency values in the market. It will accelerate the devaluation of these currencies. And that's good for us as gold investors. So for those of you that brush off Bitcoin and the cryptos, I think you're making a mistake. I think that it's all very constructive for us if you look down the road a bit. And I would encourage you all to, just make sure you do some homework in this area. It's better to do it now than in 5 or 10 years when you're using all this stuff and you could have made millions and millions of dollars if you just would have had some initiative and taken some risks. When it's all clear to everybody, the opportunity's gone, folks. So this is an evening musing of mine, and I hope some of you enjoyed it.